Link TV presents Mosaic World News from the Middle East. Here are today's top stories.
Syrian regime declares conditional truce as Islamist group rejects holiday ceasefire. Israel calls Sudan a terrorist state after Khartoum holds Tel Aviv responsible for airstrike. And both U.S. presidential candidates pledge to continue drone assassinations. Mosaic World News from the Middle East begins now.
Hours before the start of Eid al-Adha, Syria agreed to stop its military operations. However, the opposition conditioned the truce on the release of its prisoners by Friday, while what is known as Ansar al-Islam, or the Partisans of Islam, rejected the truce.
Syria's announcement of its final and official stance on the truce proposed by Brahimi was delayed, but the regime's response is a gift to the Syrian people during the holiday. The announcement was made a few hours before the start of Eid al-Adha by the general leadership of the Syrian army, but it reserved what it called the right to respond to attacks by armed groups. Military operations will stop on the Syrian territory from Friday until Monday. On the other hand, the Free Syrian Army confirmed its commitment to the truce, but conditioned it on the release of its prisoners on Friday. Meanwhile, Ansar al-Islam gunmen doubted the regime's army will abide by the truce and considered themselves unconcerned with the ceasefire. UN Human Rights Council investigators have indicated war crimes and crimes against humanity are occurring in Syria. The head of the investigators' commission, Brazilian Paulo Pinheiro, announced that it sent the Syrian president a letter asking for permission to enter Syria. Meanwhile, before the truce goes into effect, the situation on the ground in Syria has not eased since military battles continue between the two sides of the struggle and have also intensified. Agence France-Presse reported that opposition fighters took control of Aleppo's strategic Ashrafiyeh neighborhood that holds a Kurdish majority. At the same time, clashes were ongoing between regime forces and opposition groups vying to control Syrian, a Christian-majority neighborhood located south of al-Ashrafiyeh. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said the cities of Daraya, Harasta, and Douma in the countryside of Damascus were shelled, and clashes erupted on the outskirts of El-Tadamon and Al-Qadam, south of the capital, and in Ma'arat al-Numan in Idlib, and in Al-Rastan in Homs. The opposition observatory also reported finding the body of the pastor of St. Elias Greek Orthodox Church, Fadi al-Haddad, who was slaughtered in the city of Katana in the countryside of Damascus. He had been kidnapped by unidentified gunmen a few days ago. On the other hand, the official Syrian TV channel said the death toll of the massacre committed by what is called Liwa'ah al-Islam, or Islam Brigade, in Douma has risen to 25. The channel said the victims were slaughtered on Ali ibn Abu Talib Street. It also broadcast videos of a car explosion carried out by terrorists in a crowded street at the Tadamon entrance of Damascus, indicating that the preliminary toll of the explosion is 4 killed and 11 injured civilians. This comes as Syrian Prime Minister Dr. Wael al-Halki is visiting Homs province to look into the situation of its residents under the direction of President al-Assad.
Homs is calling on its residents to return because life here is completely normal. The government will also start, and it has started, to prepare a database of afflicted people in Homs and other provinces. The government will provide financial compensation equal to half the estimated value presented by the governors and subcommittees.
دوليا أكدت الخارجية الروسية أن الولايات المتحدة تنسق وتؤمن مساعدة.
On the international front, the Russian Foreign Ministry confirmed that the United States is coordinating and providing logistic support to supply weapons to the Syrian opposition. At the same time, the Iranian Islamic Republic's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, accused Washington and Zionism of creating crises in the region with the aid of their agents here to distract their people of the imminent dangers they face. He said some are seeking revenge against Syria because for 3 decades it stood in the face of Zionists and defended the resistance factions in Palestine and Lebanon.
وصف
Israeli defense official Amos Gilad described Sudan as a dangerous terrorist state, but did not confirm Israel's involvement in the raid on an arms factory in Khartoum yesterday. On the other hand, the Sudanese cabinet asked international and Arab organizations to denounce what it described as Israel's brutal aggression on the Sudanese territory.
During a meeting last night, Sudan's cabinet decided to seek help from internal and external forces to confront what it described as an Israeli aggression. The cabinet also asked the African Union, the Arab League, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and the countries of the non-aligned movement to denounce Israel. As soon as the meeting ended, a number of Khartoum residents gathered to express their anger and chanted slogans denouncing Israel. The first vice president denounced Israel while addressing this crowd.
If they think that by striking the ammunition factory and our military industry they can hurt our pride, we say no, 1,000 no's. If they think they can undermine our sovereignty, no, 1,000 times, no. If they think they're going to make us shift our principles, our message, and our calling, no, 1,000 times, no.
Sudanese newspapers wondered how to put an end to what they called Israel's repetitive attacks. They described what occurred as Israeli arrogance in regards to Khartoum and published pictures of the strike's victims. Some residents insisted on the need to respond to Israel, while others focused on the need to remove military installations from residential areas.
We have to strike back the same way they hit us. Even if we're not going to win, we still have to strike. The battle has a winner and a defeated.
I don't really have an opinion about the Israeli aggression on Sudan, but by God, this area is very dangerous for the residents. I asked the government to move these military facilities from residential areas.
During our tour of the damaged areas, we found out that residents are still in shock. This citizen, whose store was destroyed, is looking for identification papers and his store's license after everything got burned. The reaction of the Sudanese people is clear. They want retaliation against Israel and to take revenge. At the same time, they are calling on the government to move military facilities from the cities. Amar Rajul, Al Jazeera, Al Khartoum.
Fresh deadly violence forces Rohingya Muslims to flee to emergency camps. At least 5 Muslims have been killed and around 80 others injured since October 21 in Rakhine State. Government officials, however, say 20 people have died in the region. Hundreds of Rohingya homes have also been torched in different cities. The Rohingya minority group has long been subjected to systematic abuse and violence. The Myanmar's government is under fire over the killings of Rohingyas by Buddhist extremists. The United Nations has expressed alarm over the violation of Muslims' rights in Myanmar. More U.S. troops have been killed in Afghanistan. 2 American soldiers died in a so-called green-on-blue attack in Uruzgan province. Other reports say an Australian soldier has been killed in the province. The green-on-blue attacks have left scores of foreign forces dead in recent months. At least 365 U.S.-led foreign soldiers have been killed so far this year. Most of the slain foreign troops are American.
Despite their differences, there is one thing that President Obama and his rival Mitt Romney can agree on: the use of drones.
Let me ask you, Governor, because we know President Obama's position on this. What is your position on the use of drones?
Drones are called various names, from unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, or spy planes. These developing weapons of the U.S. military have dramatically increased under President Obama. And this week, Republican presidential challenger Mitt Romney said that if he were elected president, he would not change much.
It's widely reported that drones are being used in drone strikes, and I support that entirely. and feel the President was right to up the usage of that technology and believe that we should continue to use it to continue to go after the people who represent a threat to this nation.
The cost of sending an assassination drone may be less than a platoon or battalion. However, there have been countless deaths of innocents, including women and children, blamed on the use of those drones. Medea Benjamin has been a longtime anti-drone activist who just returned from Pakistan, which has witnessed an increase in the use of U.S. assassination drones in its airspace.
There's really a killing spree going on without any way for the wronged Pakistanis to get some kind of redress.
The Air Force has 65,000 to 70,000 people working to process all of the data and footage it's currently collecting from drones. Experts say that Americans need to be more aware over its use of drones in its military. Their use has increased over the past several years, and experts say the problem is drones are not an exact science, and many innocent people get killed. And if Americans think that assassination drones are only a foreign policy issue, experts say they need to think again. Congress has passed legislation that would allow more drones to be used for surveillance in the U.S. The Washington Times reports that there could be as many as 30,000 drones overhead in the U.S. by 2020. Colin Campbell, Press TV, Washington.
The Prime Minister of the Palestinian National Authority, Dr. Salam Fayyad, announced a new action plan that will set out the objectives of bilateral relations with the European Union. The announcement came after Fayyad held negotiations with the European Union's High Representative for Foreign Affairs, Catherine Ashton. The plan aims to specify the relationship between the European Union and the Palestinian Authority for the next 5 years.
During her Middle Eastern tour, the European Union's High Representative for Foreign Affairs, Catherine Ashton, headed to Ramallah. Ashton concluded her negotiations with the Prime Minister of the Palestinian National Authority, Dr. Salam Fayyad, by agreeing to a new action plan that aims to determine the bilateral relations between the European Union and Palestine for the next 5 years.
هذه الخطة تمثل سعينا لشراكة استراتيجية مع الاتحاد الأوروبي.
This plan represents our quest for a strategic partnership with the European Union.
مهمة للغاية لتحقيق سلام عادل ودائم في المنطقة.
Palestinians view this partnership as very important to attaining just and durable peace in our region, which includes the establishment of a fully sovereign, democratic, and viable Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital.
Fayyad took advantage of the opportunity to express his deep gratitude for the European Union's support of the Palestinian Authority. Ashton viewed the plan as a new phase in a partnership she described as distinct. Ashton added that such a plan reflects the European Union's response to the changes in the region.
We believe in a two-state solution.
We believe in a two-state solution and the establishment of an independent Palestinian state and a safe Israeli state. We will continue to work towards this goal in the coming days.
The new plan includes funds and economic development aid to sustain the Palestinian Authority. The action plan also provides a work program between the European Union and the Palestinian Authority in various sectors, including internal affairs, trade, energy, water, and transportation. The first similar agreement between the two sides was signed in 2005. It was renewed until a new action plan was drafted. Janai Boulis, BBC.
Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton is continuing her visit to the region and has held talks with President Shimon Peres and Palestinian Prime Minister Salam Fayyad. In Jerusalem, Ashton and Peres discussed sanctions on Iran and its nuclear program. They also spoke about the latest round of violence between Israel and Hamas along the Gaza border and the stalled peace process between Israel and the Palestinians. In Ramallah, Ashton and Fayyad focused on the peace process as well as the new European Policy Action Plan, which sets out the objectives of the EU-PA bilateral relations for the next 5 years. Quiet returned to the south today after an unofficial cessation of fighting orchestrated by Egypt. Palestinian officials say that Egypt mediated a truce between Israel, Hamas, and other terrorist groups, bringing the rocket fire and Israeli retaliations to a halt. Israel denies that there is any official truce in place. 5 Israelis were wounded during yesterday's shelling. 6 terrorists were reportedly killed following Israeli airstrikes. Prime Minister Netanyahu says that he will strike hard at the terrorists. At the same time, he will aim to complete the fortification of the homes of residents of the south. The announcement came after the terrorists fired 79 rockets at Israel throughout the day. According to Palestinian sources, the ceasefire was mediated by Egyptian intelligence official Major General Nadal al-Assad. According to the report, Hamas has agreed to deploy forces along the Gaza border to prevent any fire by rogue terrorist groups. Following an intelligence warning of possible hackers, police officers were ordered to turn off their computers and refrain from using disk-on keys and CDs on the central computer system. Officials report that there was no specific threat, but a general warning had been received by computer security officers. They also report that there was no fear of a cyber attack, but rather a new unidentified virus that could compromise the police computers. In last week's cabinet meeting, Prime Minister Netanyahu reportedly told the cabinet that Israel faces attempts to infiltrate its computer systems on a daily basis. The mayor of Sderot has launched a hunger strike in a move aimed at getting the government to return much-needed funding to his city that has existed for many years under the threat of rockets and bombs fired by terrorists. Sitting in a tent erected last night across from the finance ministry, Sderot Mayor David Baskila told IBA's Aryeh O'Sullivan that his town would collapse without the infusion of 70 million shekels.
Mayor Baskila is bitter. No one from the Prime Minister's office or the Treasury has even bothered to visit him. He set up a tent across from the finance ministry yesterday, just as the south was being pounded by 80 rockets fired from Gaza. He says that the government and Treasury had agreed to allocate 70 million shekels to Sderot as part of a recovery program, but never followed through with it.
Till now, they give us only 7 million shekels.
You feel like you're being ignored?
Yeah, we think that there is something that nobody there in the Treasury Office Minister understand really what Sderot need, and nobody treat Sderot seriously. They talk a lot about Sderot anyway, but nobody done nothing for the people that live in Sderot.
Baskila took little solace from the fact that U.S. President Barack Obama mentioned his town in this week's presidential debate. He's only interested in getting on the radar of Israeli leaders, who he says have shown indifference.
I'm ashamed to tell you that except the Interior Minister Eli Yishai and Yvette Lieberman, the Foreign Minister, nobody from Prime Minister office arrived, and nobody from the Treasury office arrived. And this is something that makes me shame as a mayor of Sderot. We think, and I ask, as one that born in Sderot, I ask the government to treat Sderot like the citizen of Sderot treat the state. We keep the interest of Israel state. We want our government to keep the interest of the people that live in Sderot. Because if Sderot will be weak, it can bring that all Israel will be weak. Sderot have to be strong. For Sderot and for Jerusalem.
In response, an Interior Ministry spokesman said that the government was withholding 67 million shekels earmarked to pay the town's debt, since the municipality had not yet met the terms of the recovery package.
The so-called Israel Land Administration announced the appropriation of 660 plots of land to establish settlement units in the settlements of Piskat Ze'ev and Male Adumim in the eastern part of occupied Jerusalem.
The race to plan and quickly implement the procedures is ongoing from all directions. As soon as one settlement project is executed, another one follows. 660 plots of land in occupied Jerusalem are now targeted by settlement construction, scattered between the two so-called settlements of Piskat Ze'ev and Ma'al Adumim that are located in the eastern part of the occupied city.
This colonization through settlements continues. Settlements are being built and expanded, and also new settlements are also being created. This comes within the framework of the full aggression carried out by the right-wing government against the Palestinian people. The aggression, including Judaizing the city of Jerusalem, ethnic cleansing, expelling citizens, and violating Muslim and Christian holy sites.
The so-called Ministry of Housing, in cooperation with the Israel Land Administration, also appropriated 5,000 pieces of land for settlement centers. The settlement decision includes areas inside the Green Line. This is done through the appropriation of 370 plots of land in Be'er al-Saba, 290 in Ma'alot, 150 in Sur Hadassah, located near the Beitar elite settlement in western Bethlehem, and 100 plots of land in the area of Rishon LeZion.
There's a continuous Israeli attack on Palestinian land, and through it, the Netanyahu government is trying to solidify a final solution built on its vision. This vision is based on establishing settlement centers in the largest clusters, including Gush Etzion, Ma'ale Adumim, and also Pisgat Ze'ev. But we must also note that this extremist Israeli government is dealing with the entire West Bank as a large settlement.
Since the beginning of the year, Israel cordoned off more than 30,000 plots of land, which it allocated for building in different areas inside the Green Line and in the northern provinces. These constructions require the confiscation of thousands of dunams, destruction and displacement. At the time of this report, more schemes are being planned and barely an inch of the holy city is not being targeted by Israel, with plans to steal it. From in front of the Ma'ale Adumim settlement in the eastern part of the occupied city, Ali Dar Ali, Palestine TV.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claimed that an undivided Jerusalem is the eternal capital of Israel, and that Tel Aviv has the full right to build there. During Netanyahu's visit to the Gilo settlement in occupied Jerusalem, he said his visit is confirmation that the Israeli government's policy to continue building settlements in the city of Jerusalem has not changed.
U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is heading to Algeria next week in an attempt to ease the fears of officials there from participating in the African force set to intervene in northern Mali. For its part, the African Union announced yesterday that it froze Mali's membership. It confirmed that the African plan for military intervention in northern Mali will be ready within weeks.
أسابيع فقط وتكون الخطة العسكرية لدول غرب إفريقيا.
In only a matter of weeks, the military plan for the community of West African states will be ready to intervene in northern Mali. It aims to retake the north from the armed groups that seized control of it 7 months ago. The groups have taken advantage of the military coup in Bamako to announce the secession of the north from the south. While the military intervention was requested by West African nations known as ECOWAS, Algeria and Mauritania oppose the plan and rule out participating in the military campaign. However, France, the former colonial power, waged a campaign for military action at the Security Council and succeeded to drag the United States of America along with it. This made the military option in northern Mali an inevitable event. Through this action, France will provide military assistance and support to the African force. Both Paris and Washington are insisting that Algeria participate in the intervention because of its extensive experience in fighting armed groups. The Algerian leadership said it is a role it does not want to play for fear of the implications of a war that could quickly turn into a war of attrition, especially in the aftermath of the influx of a large number of gunmen into the area. In addition, it says the war could cause human losses among civilians, and that could transform border areas into a land of refugees with over 500,000 people.
In a few hours, Hajj pilgrims at the sanctified house of God will return to Mina to stone the devil.
Nearly 3.5 million pilgrims are now seeking to collect stones from Muzdalifah and to remain there for a few hours before heading to Mina on the morning of the first day of the blessed Eid al-Adha. The pilgrims at the House of God took steps this morning to stand on Mount Arafat after having spent the day of Tarwiyah in Mina yesterday. Groups of pilgrims continue to arrive amid strict security measures imposed by the Saudi authorities offering services and organising vehicular traffic and pedestrian access.
Muzdalifah is the fourth stop in the Hajj journey after Tawaf or circumambulation. It is preceded by Sa'i at the Holy Mosque and spending the day of Tarwiyah in Mina and standing on Mount Arafat that is located between Mina and Arafat. The pilgrims spend the night there and perform Maghrib and Isha prayers collectively and partially, and they also collect pebbles to stone the devil. The pilgrims will stay the night in Muzdalifah until Friday morning to mark al-Adha. They will return to Mina to perform the stoning ritual known as the Great Jamra of Aqaba and to slaughter the sheep. Afterward, they perform the Ifada Tawaf around the Kaaba, which is followed by Sa'i between Safa and Marwa, marking the beginning of the 3 days of Tashriq, where the pilgrims stone the 3 Jamrats while reciting God is Great before performing the farewell Tawaf.
The pilgrims at the sanctified house of God stood on Mount Arafat while they prayed and thanked God for helping them perform the 5th pillar of Islam.
God willing, the situation in the Arab and Muslim world will calm down, and may the Muslims be guided. We hope that the situation in Syria calms down.
Today is the best day because it's the Great Hajj.
Thank God, I finally came here to perform Hajj. I feel that our world is nothing compared to this.
The views expressed on Mosaic are from contributing broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible by grants from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, the Wincoat Foundation, the Firedoll Foundation, and by support of viewers like you. Thank you. Watch Mosaic World News online. Stay up to date with breaking news, read our blog, get transcripts of past shows, and more at linktv.org/mosaic. Airwaves, a global channel of uncompromising stories, world news, documentaries, entertainment, and culture. Link TV, connecting you to the world. For more information, visit linktv.org.